a while, and I've heard this repeatedly from people who come out and said, I'm fed up. I was a former prosecutor 10 years ago. The place is very different now. You're talking about, but I will say, as an Attorney General, I consider that there are two functions to the job. The function number one is to enforce the law that is given to you. To enforce the law that is given to you, and to make sure you are coordinating your resources with all of the other relevant federal and other state and other local police departments and other law enforcement officials. That's also another problem we've had repeatedly over the last 8 years in particular, is a failure of coordination with the federal resources with our own state attorney general. So the point is yes, coordination with ICE is critically part of the job. ICE is involved in law enforcement. I'm running to be the chief law enforcement officer, so I will work with ICE, I will work with all federal prosecutors, and I'll work with all state law enforcement agencies. As far as the laws that I enforce, they're going to be the laws that are given to me. If it's E-Verify or anything else of the nature, it will be enforced because it's the law. If I don't like the law, however, I'm not going to come up here and tell you tonight as a prosecutor, I'm not running as a legislator, I'm running as an enforcer of the law as it exists. And if I don't like the law, you'll see me up in the legislature, or you might see me contacting my members of the congressional delegation in an independent role saying, hey, I don't like that immigration law as it's being applied. It ought to be tighter, and this is why. But when I'm sitting there with my prosecutor hat, I follow the law. You ask me, how are you going to understand that I'm going to follow my promises? Well, I guess the answer is very simply this. The one thing about you learn if you're going to be successful as a lawyer practicing as long as I am is that your word is what your whole practice is built on. And I wouldn't have been practicing as long and been as successful as I have if I didn't have a word. If I can't give you the same word that I've been giving in the law practice that I've given for 30 years, I couldn't be running and I can't be a successful lawyer. That's been my record in the community, and that's the record I'm going to maintain. I think one of the things that's most damning about the Hummel reports are the people who were afraid to make a call to the Attorney General's office because of the interrelationship between the Attorney General and the mayor and his staff. And that's one of the key things that has to be changed in the first instance, is so that citizens aren't afraid to contact the Attorney General. I've made it very clear that one of my pledges would be that everyone would have a confidential access to me to basically report any type of misuse of crime, and that would be very important. I'm not going to have the political connections. I don't have the political connections. I've only been in political office a couple of times in life, and they were 15 years ago. So I'm going to be having that degree of independence because you've got to have the confidence in the Attorney General in the first place. Indeed, I agree completely that the staff is there, the resources are there in the Attorney General's office to reposition them with some better support, some basic auditors for doing forensic auditing to go after that type of issue, to bring in the support in terms of integrating law enforcement, to utilize the FBI resources, to utilize our state police more effectively, to be going after all of the public corruption that's out there. I'm going to go beyond public corruption because there's a whole array of white-collar crime that I also believe is not being touched as well. And clearly, if we don't do it, we can't have any confidence in our government. Nobody really would have any confidence. And who knows exactly how much money we're losing in this process of corruption. How much money did we lose at the Rhode Island Resource Recovery Facility, which wasn't even investigated? And there was plenty of time to do the investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office did notify the Attorney General's office and provide information, and nothing was done. And why wasn't it done? Well, you know why it wasn't done. So the first part of this is you can't go out if you're running for the Attorney General and say, I'm going to indict everybody first and investigate later. But certainly when you have the information, when the smell exists, you have a duty to investigate, and investigate promptly. Thank you.